You know, I don't like almost every single aspect of the Blade Runner 2049. I'm not a fan of Denis Villeneuve's simplified, primitivist sci-fi design. The slow pacing, in storytelling, in cinematography, in music, in editing, honestly just makes me bored. The protagonist travels through uninteresting location and performs uninteresting actions. But honestly, I'm willing to forgive the film all of this. And I absolutely love it for the one reason only: the central theme it explores. And that theme is the artificiality and emptiness of our lives. From the very first text on a screen, before the film even begins, we are told that even the previous generation of robots proved to be too dangerous, too real, which led to the creation of even more artificial replicants, like our protagonist. And in the very first scene we find out that this more obedient replicant, this triumph of artificiality, is assigned to hunt down and kill other replicants, ones that are freer and more human than he is. And immediately this older model replicant is set in direct contrast to our main character.
Because you've never seen a miracle.
With this phrase, he articulates probably the most human thing imaginable: hope, belief, meaning, a desire to protect something miraculous. Meanwhile, our protagonist shows no sign of sympathy or emotions. But there are a few very subtle cues. First, our main character is played by Ryan Gosling. Ryan is pretty unusual actor. It is hard to define what emotion lives in his face: melancholy, quiet sadness, resignation, longing, emptiness, a touch of irony, detachment, tension. But one thing is for sure: it's absolutely not the emotionless robot face. There are probably thousands of actors whose faces could give a perfect, cold, machine-like vibe, but Ryan isn't one of them. Even when he acts like a motionless synthetic being, you look at his face and think, he must be feeling something. I can see he feels the emptiness, the sadness, the meaninglessness and submission of his life. I'm sure he does. So yeah, I guess Ryan is genius cast for this movie. And second, right after the opening, Kay walks over to the tree and becomes curious about the flower. And it doesn't feel like some cold replicant investigation. The music, the fact that he smells it, Ryan's face, all of it immediately creates this feeling of mystery and deeper meaning and deeper feeling. So already, after just one scene, we have a protagonist who represents the highest level of artificiality, but is already touched by something deeper, and we know he feels something. Of course, it's almost unnecessary to say, but the entire movie takes place in the most artificial, cold and empty environment imaginable. And that works perfectly to support the movie's central theme: endless geometric fields stretching into a grey horizon, a black volcanic desert with no signs of life, endless blocks of buildings swallowed in dark smoke, grubs in dirty puddle instead of real food, row after row of simplified primitive shelving. Even though I don't like this design, I actually find it unpleasant and boring to look at. But I'm sure it's the perfect visual style to convey this feeling that this world is artificial and nothing truly alive remains in it. In the next scene, I think we are given a glimpse into the very core of what it means to be a replicant, how he perceives and understands his own existence. Blood black nothingness began to spin, a system of cells interlinked within cells, interlinked within cells, interlinked within one stem. And I think this reflects what modern culture has come to, that a person is not a love, God, meaning, existential depth, family, heaven, purpose, but just a system of atoms, molecules, cells, born from nothing and returning to nothing. And the replicant is the triumph of that worldview, of this anthology. And then the test tries to destabilize the replicant emotionally. A properly functioning replicant is supposed to interpret lines like "what is like to hold the hand of someone you love" as just the product of interlinked cells. Just like we are taught to think in modern world. Love doesn't exist, it is just oxytocin. Inspiration or purpose don't exist, it is just serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine in necessary proportions. Then we are shown a key part of Kay's life: joy. Even her name sounds like a synthetic, surface-level product. Not love, not connection, not intimacy, not even a name he gave her, just joy. But clearly Kay is attached to her. He even reflectively gives her space, and despite living in a miserable place, he spends his salary on what seems to be an expensive upgrade for his holographic girl, so she can always be with him. That alone can tell us, even if it's not love, Kay fears loneliness or it is discomfort for him. He needs these feelings, however fabricated and artificial they may be. This little scene becomes especially poetic when, in the most emotional moment, Joy simply freezes mid-sentence, interrupted by a phone call. You already struggle to believe she is real because we see her glitching in the rain and we know they can't even touch each other. But she is so artificial that you won't even get a ghost of a kiss if your fabricated reality disagrees with it. And then we're introduced to Wallace, the god of this artificial world. He wants these already obedient creations, the ones that don't resist even when being killed, to be able to reproduce on an industrial scale, giving birth without manufacturing cost. Wallace's dream is to lead humanity forward by creating the most total, large-scale form of synthetic slavery imaginable. Then comes a couple of interesting scenes, because the themes of sex and intimacy is one of key threads in film exploration what it means to be a human. First, a prostitute approaches Kay and tries to seduce him. Yes, she is not actually interested in him, she was sent as spy. Yes, she is not even a real prostitute, she is a replicant, but at least she is alive and warm, unlike his holographic girl. Still, Kay turns down the intimacy. In the next scene, his boss, a real woman, gets emotional. Drunk on vodka, apparently feeling completely alone in this artificial world, she sees something human in Kay and wants to sleep with him, but Kay shows no interest in her either. And yet, in the very next scene, while working, he can't spend a moment without his holographic girlfriend. It gives the impression that even though Kay needs someone close, he is just incapable of real living intimacy, either because he's afraid of it or because he sees no point in it. Then we reach the big moment. Kay learns that his memory might be real and that he might have been born. At this point he's still unsure and we don't fully know what he's feeling, but it's clear he's overwhelmed with it. And the movie immediately marks this revelation in painfully ironic way. An artificial AI hologram product named Joy seems to be deeply moved and she tells Kay that now he needs a real name. Reverently, she calls him Joe, which is already suspicious, considering her own name is Joy and usually with name Joe we have a prefix average. But still, our protagonist now has a name and he's ready to check whether the memory is real. He says, "I know it's real." This moment feels like a kind of triumph. Sure, if he is really a born replicant, he is in a massive danger. The whole world would hunt him. But I think he genuinely hoped that this memory, this one fragile thread, echo of humanity, would turn out to be a true. And that's where the pain hits. He has lived a fake life, seen himself as interlinked cells within cells, trapped in emptiness, performing the most anti-human task, and now this moment of clarity just devastates him. On the one hand, it destroys everything he believed. On the other, it confirms the most fragile hope he could only share with his hologram, but it also puts his life in serious danger and drops him impossible questions. Who is my mother? Who is my father? How is that even possible? And what am I supposed to do with this knowledge? And again, the movie chooses to celebrate this newfound humanity. The AI hologram product named Joy brings in the prostitute. Now our Joe is going to have real sex, just like a real human. But sex with a prostitute is already artificial. Sex with a replicant prostitute, even more so. Sex with a replicant prostitute through the filter of a holographic girlfriend product? That's a whole another level of fake. And considering this replicant prostitute hologram combo is actually a planted agent, you can feel just how bitterly ironic this whole celebration of humanity really is. But in the same time, it is the most intimate and real act that Kay can get. Meanwhile, the replicant Love kills Kay's boss. Wallace calls Love his best angel, but considering Wallace himself is more devil than God, since he creates life only to throw it into endless total slavery, so and Love is less of an angel and more like a demon doing the devil's work. And this demon kills the boss, who is, first of all, a real living human being, which is rare in this movie. And second, she is arguably the most human person in the entire movie. She saw a spark of humanity even in an android, and she seems to care more than anyone else about protecting humanity from potential war, even through murdering synthetic babies. Yeah, but they are not real human. So, a synthetic demon murders our avenging angel, and I love how Love treats her corpse in the most careless, indifferent way possible, that only amplifies her cold machine nature. Meanwhile, Wallace resurrects Deckard's true, long-lost love, but the smallest detail ruins it completely, because it's just a cheap, fabricated imitation. So yeah, Deckard suffers from total artificiality of this world too. And then our most human replicant, Joe, finally finds out that he's not the hero of this story. He's just a replicant who went mad believing in his own uniqueness, and the only reason he exists is to protect the real hero. And again, the film painfully mocks on him. As Joe stands crushed by this new truth, the movie reminds him that his beloved hologram was nothing more than a mass-produced, soulless product, one that calls every user Joe, and his existential pain and loneliness just something.
You look lonely. I can fix that.
The ads make their relationship feel even more worthless, because Joy simply gives you whatever you want to see and whatever you want to hear. And yet, the Resistance gives our Joe Kay an answer he can't walk away from. Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do. Kay remembers the human-like replicant from the beginning and his message.
Because you've never seen a miracle.
And in the end, Joe sacrifices himself to clear the path for the real heroes of this story. Deckard, who experienced real love and fathered a child, and that child, the only real hope for the future of replicants. And this ending doesn't feel like happy, divine sense of meaning. Our hero was able to die for something greater, because that's the most he could possibly do with his life. It doesn't make him a hero of a story, it doesn't give his life some glorious, enlightened purpose, but it makes his meaningless existence slightly less artificial, and at least gives him peace. First of all, I honestly don't like Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker. Watching his movies as movies is like a torture for me. They are very slow, not much happens, they feel cold, and the visuals are always minimalistic and empty. But what I absolutely love in Denis Villeneuve, and why I can't forgive anything to him, is that he is real author, a creator, and a poet. He actually has something to say, and you can actually feel his message a lot. Arrival is a pretty slow and dull film on the surface, but the emotional color that Villeneuve brings to it, the way he uses the alien story to strike right in your heart with this idea of choosing love in the face of inevitable time, pain, death, and fate, that transforms Arrival into a masterpiece. I swear, watching Arrival recently, I broke down crying like I hadn't in years. Dune goes from being just another space blockbuster to a horrifying tragedy, where the main character, who never wanted power, only love and peace, has no choice. In fact, maybe he never had a choice, but he should become the foreseen messiah. And that future means giving up love and becoming exactly what he feared: a manipulator, a murderer, and a dictator. And Blade Runner 2049, its message of meaninglessness, the haunting sense of artificiality, it's a mirror of the world we live in. Just like Kay, we have no god, no lineage, no meaning. We are just atoms, doomed to vanish into nothing. We are just cells interlinked within cells in one stem. Just like Kay, we crave purpose. We want to be the hero, but the best we can do is choose something the world offers us. Maybe love, maybe art, maybe leaving a trace. But like Kay, that will not give us true meaning. At best, it can bring us some peace. Just like Kay, we run from real intimacy and love, into shallow connections, into our rooms, into social medias, back to our pixel girls and cheap dopamine hits. Because we can't process the reality we live in. We are way too weak to handle true human connection. And we are all looking for a way to escape and forget. Kay's life is the life of an artificial android in an artificial world. And our lives are the lives of artificial people in an artificial world.